infertile defects, get lost. I'm also going to demand compensation. Scott, who has been suffering from a chronic illness and has been searching for a donor. Suddenly, he proposed a divorce to me, who had been supporting him earnestly. Not understanding why, I was stunned, but his words made me decide on the divorce. Understood, I replied shortly, and left. The next day, as I was unpacking at my new place, I had received 27 missed calls from Scott. It was too late by the time I realized the seriousness of the situation. I'll show him hell. My name is Megan Hansen. I have been married to Scott for 7 years. My married life with him has been tough and harsh. It all started from suspicions of infertility since we couldn't have children. Among his siblings, we were the only ones without children. Every time we met, his mother would rush us asking about grandchildren. And Scott would continue loveless acts just for the sake of having children. I was pitted by his siblings and their wives. And each visit to his parents' house wore me down mentally. Hey, I'm just saying, but could it be infertility? It was the 3rd year of trying to conceive. Since there was no sign of pregnancy, Scott began to suspect my infertility. I've also been feeling anxious and did some research. If we can't have a child after 5 years, we can't deny that possibility. Seriously? A woman who can't have children is the worst. It's like a fraud. What? I couldn't believe what Scott had just said. Why is it only my fault? Well, it's obvious. I've never heard of male infertility, and nobody around here has it. It's mostly the women's fault. There's no way I'm that rare case. The cause of infertility isn't just with women. Men can also be infertile, and without any tests done at this stage. I couldn't accept being blamed alone. Deciding now who's at fault without any tests isn't right. Whether it's good or bad, if infertility is discovered after testing, we should proceed with treatment and try to have a child. Isn't it important to think about the future? If testing reveals infertility, that's the end of it. I have a junior who's been trying IVF and complaining about the high costs. I don't want to go through all that. And I'll just tell my parents you're infertile and to give up on grandchildren. That's the end of it. There's no need to talk about the future. No matter what, he wanted me to be the cause. Why do I have to be labeled infertile? I've been saying over and over, we won't know unless we test. Watching Scott interact listlessly, seemingly uninterested in the conversation, my irritation grew. Day by day, I worried about not being able to conceive, a concern that Scott had voiced as well. As the days I felt anxious about not conceiving continued, I wondered if I might be the cause. However, my friends and parents encouraged me. And they always suggested discussing it with Scott. Despite this support, Scott not only failed to face the issue but also kept rejecting me. He wouldn't listen and just blamed me for not conceiving. Enraged, I raised my voice and he glared at me annoyingly. There's no way I'm the cause. My brothers all have children. I've heard that infertility can be genetic. Indeed, my mother said she struggled to conceive me and my sister. But it wasn't infertility, just timing. Knowing this, Scott wanted to pin the blame on me. Your hypothesis is disproved by the fact that my sister and I were born. But neither you nor your sister have children. My family does, so obviously the problem is with your body. There's no reason I should be blamed. My sister and her husband had just married 6 months ago. It's unreasonable for them to start trying for children so soon. Scott jumps to conclusions without even understanding such matters. I clenched my fists in anger at Scott's stubbornness. So you just want to blame me? It's not my fault, it's yours. If you're going to say that, let's get tested properly. You're confident you have what it takes, right? Then, let's go together and get it clear. I also wanted to know if I was infertile. Even if something happened and we divorced. If I remarried and tried to have children with someone new, I wanted to know my chances. With this discussion, I started to consider divorcing Scott. Unaware of my thoughts, Scott easily fell for cheap provocations. Fine? Since it's your fault anyway, there's no problem even if we test. Thus, we decided to get a fertility test together. However, right after this incident, Scott's chronic illness was diagnosed. He was at stage 5 chronic renal failure, requiring dialysis treatment. Your husband's renal failure is at stage 5. It's terminal, but it doesn't immediately threaten his life. We can maintain his current condition with dialysis treatments. I couldn't believe what the doctor was telling me. End-stage chronic kidney failure? Stage 5? Repeating these words in my mind made everything else go blank. I couldn't take in anything else the doctor was saying. He will need to visit 4 times a week, each session lasting 4 hours for hemodialysis. If there's no improvement, we'll proceed with peritoneal dialysis, requiring hospitalization. In that case, he will undergo APD during night sleep at least once a month. Or CAPD during the day 4 to 6 times. Doctor, will Scott's condition improve with this treatment? As I listened, it sounded more like symptom management rather than a complete recovery. I asked for clarification, and the doctor's expression darkened. Honestly, think of it as a lifelong condition rather than something that will recover. A donor transplant would ideally be necessary to lead a life as freely as before. However, finding a donor is not easy. What we doctors can do is prevent his condition from worsening. We aim to allow him to spend his daily life with his family. That's terrible. Hearing this was a shock, but having it clearly stated made it difficult to accept. Scott, listening next to me, seemed even more shocked, his face downturned, silent. We went home silently that day, with dialysis treatment starting tomorrow. Scott, are you okay? Back home, Scott continued to be silent. Concerned, I approached him as he sat on the living room sofa. And he started laughing hysterically, as if he had lost his mind. Me, with end-stage renal failure. It's laughable. Why do I have to go through this? Just as he was laughing, the next moment, he threw the TV remote at me from the table. Surprised, I let out a small scream. And instinctively covered my face with my hands to dodge the attack. This is all because I married someone like you. How can you say that? The diagnosis had clearly shaken Scott the most. Yet, that didn't mean his words didn't hurt me. I am human too. Though I had considered divorcing him, I had never once wished he would just disappear. However, I couldn't forgive Scott for so easily throwing such hurtful words at me. Deeply wounding me from the bottom of my heart. You've ruined my life. Not only can you not bear children, but you also don't function as a woman should. Plus, you bring this inexplicable disease like a plague. Marrying you has ruined my life. Illness erodes a person's heart. That was clear from Scott's words. There had always been hints of his abusive nature. But he had never gone this far before. If only you weren't here. If only I hadn't married you. Despite his repeated accusations, for some reason, he hugged me tightly. Initially, I was confused. However, he must be suffering too. His arms trembled as he held me. Probably, being outwardly pleasant, he had no one else but me to lash out at. At that moment, I felt I was the only one who could bear his hardships. So I decided to endure whatever was said and support him. It would be okay to wait until his illness stabilized. Divorce could happen at any time. For now, I would support him to my limits. With that thought, I embarked on a challenging period of caregiving. However, a month later, I realized that was a mistake. Megan, let's get a divorce. We were having dinner together when Scott suddenly declared his intention to divorce. Confused, the movement of my fork halted as I was about to eat. Unaware of my state, he continued to eat his meal as if nothing was amiss. What? What are you saying all of a sudden? What did you just say? Didn't you hear? Let me say it again then. Divorce me. We can't continue as husband and wife. It wasn't just my imagination. Scott was indeed proposing divorce. But why so suddenly? I had no memory of doing anything that would lead to a divorce. Stunned by the incomprehensible situation, Scott sighed impatiently. I'm just fed up with being with you. Just seeing your face stresses me out, and it seems like my condition is worsening. That's terrible. Why divorce? Haven't I been supporting you earnestly all this time? Supporting earnestly? Hearing my words, Scott scoffed and uttered unbelievable words. Your fault I got sick, and we can't have children. You've dragged me into this pit of misery, and you talk about support? Don't make me laugh. Scott slammed down his fork roughly and spoke in an irritated tone. His attitude and the way he spoke pushed even me, usually so patient, to my limit. Why are you blaming everything on me? It's not like I caused your illness or the fact we can't have children. Are you saying it's my fault? Scott must be overwhelmed by his illness. He probably didn't even remember that we went for the tests together. Cutting off my words, he blamed me without giving me a chance to respond. If we had children, I could have had hope to live. Without such a motivating presence, my life with you is utterly bleak. That's why, divorce me. I can't continue with you. Understood. After hearing this, I couldn't muster even the slightest desire to support him. I had thought to wait until his illness improved a bit. That time was wasted. To him, I was nothing but a harbinger of disaster. Feeling this painfully, I accepted his request. Thus, our divorce was decided. I would leave the house within the week. While Scott was at the hospital, I started preparing, visiting the city court to get the divorce papers. During this, I ran into Gina Manning, a mutual friend, at the city court counter. She was there to assist me. Megan? What's going on? Did something happen? Gina Manning, who had also attended the wedding, was quite surprised to see me picking up the divorce papers. As soon as Gina gently spoke to me, all the emotions I had been holding back burst forth. And I burst into tears inside the city court. The staff, noticing my distress, instructed Gina to take care of me and guided me to a reception room. Sorry, Gina. I couldn't hold it in. It's okay, don't worry about that. More importantly, what happened? If you're okay with it, tell me. Honestly, I didn't know her very well. I met her through Scott and we had seen each other a few times. However, every time we met, she took good care of me like a caring older sister. She was a warm person. Actually, I seriously debated whether to tell her everything. She was a friend of Scott's. If I spoke carelessly, it might get back to him. But I felt genuine concern in her eyes. I was overwhelmed by her gaze and confessed everything. Then, Gina's body shook with anger and she gently held my hand. You've endured a lot, Megan. Huh? As soon as she heard about the process leading to the divorce, Gina seemed to make a decision, looked at me intently, and revealed some shocking truths. The content made me regret how devotedly I had acted. Megan, I'll help too. Let's really make him pay. Are you sure? You are Scott's friend, after all. He's no friend. How can I stand by someone who disregards a wife who supports him like this? I can't justify his actions. Her reassuring words filled me with joy. I'll support you fully. So, Megan, let's corner him thoroughly. Yes. Thus, I decided with Gina to take revenge on Scott. That night, after he returned from the hospital, we confirmed the divorce papers together. Finally, everything was packed, and I was ready to leave the next day. Finally saying, goodbye. Huh? It's refreshing. I won't have to see your worthless face anymore. That's good. I hope this makes you happier. Despite Scott's taunting words, I responded with a calm smile and gentle tone. He might have felt something was off, but he did not pursue it. Instead, he seemed to have some big news for me, giving me a meaningful smile. Man, it seems like my luck started to turn around once we decided to divorce. I found a donor today, the doctor told me at the hospital. Understanding the reason behind his meaningful smile, I feigned a smile and congratulated him on finding a donor. That's great. I'm glad a donor was found for you. Now my life is going to be rosy. Oh, there's one more important thing. Oh? What is it? Scott, grinning as if he were leading up to the main point, waited as I pretended not to notice and responded with a puzzled look. Then, he laughed mockingly and delivered a shocking statement. Now that the divorce is settled, I have no use for you anymore. So disappear, you infertile defect. I'm going to demand compensation too. Marrying you has brought me nothing but misery. It's only fair, right? I was inwardly dismayed by Scott's unbelievable words. He really must think I am unaware of everything here. Little does he know, he's the one who's oblivious. While inwardly mocking Scott's foolishness, I simply agreed to his words. Understood, I replied briefly, and the next morning. After submitting the divorce papers at the city court, I left the house. That evening, I met up with Gina after work and went to my new home. Is this about enough for unpacking? Yes. Thank you so much. I didn't expect you'd even come to help. What are you talking about? This is the least I can do. Despite probably being tired from work, she had brought friends to help with my move. Gina, well-liked and fortunate with friends, had many people willing to help a stranger like me move. By the way, hasn't someone's phone been ringing nonstop? Isn't it Megan's? I think I've been hearing vibrations from her bag. Prompted by their words, I quickly grabbed my phone and saw 27 missed calls. All were from Scott. Did he finally notice? Calling now is pointless. As Gina and I exchanged knowing smiles, Scott called again. Answer it. I'm curious to see how he reacts. Put it on speaker. Gina was clearly enjoying the situation. Following her suggestion, I put the call on speaker, and a frantic Scott came on the line. Megan. What have you done? You won't get away with this nonsense. Scott immediately started with rough words. Hearing his tone, the men paused their work to listen to our conversation. What are you talking about? I don't understand unless you explain. Don't play dumb. You cancelled my donor, didn't you? The conversation took a turn exactly as I had anticipated, almost making me laugh out loud. It turns out that the donor Scott had been talking about was me. I went to the hospital this morning and explained the situation to the doctor. I had revealed that I was supposed to be the donor, but I declined to donate due to our divorce. Since we're no longer spouses, it only makes sense, right? Don't mess around. You've already agreed to donate once. Just give me your kidney quietly. Oh, dear. How barbaric. I don't have an organ for such a savage. You'll just have to continue treatment until a new donor appears. Scott began to yell and scream as if showing his true nature. when I spoke in a manner that further agitated his emotions. It seemed to make him even angrier, and he continued losing his composure. You're not getting away with this for free. Including your refusal to donate. I'm going to demand double the compensation in compensation. That's futile. What? He must have thought he could coerce me into donating by threatening me with money. But such tactics won't work for me. Because I am well prepared to corner him. Since you mentioned suing for compensation, I've gone ahead and hired a lawyer myself. So what? You think you can win against me with that? Don't you get it? I didn't hire a lawyer to protect myself. It's to sue you for compensation in return. What? At my sudden revelation, Scott let out an incredulous sound. To his surprise, I disclosed a shocking fact. You had an affair while we were married, didn't you? What? Scott visibly shook upon hearing about the affair. He had indeed started the affair just before his illness was diagnosed. And had been fooling around since. Gina had witnessed Scott entering a hotel with another woman and was shocked by who it was. I never thought you'd get back together with your ex-girlfriend from high school. You told me you had cut all ties and didn't even keep her contact info, didn't you? The mistress was Ashley Brown, Scott's ex-girlfriend from high school. I knew her too. Ashley works at the city courtal, right? Seems like she talks a lot about personal stuff to everyone. Thanks to that, I was able to gather information quickly. I found out about your secret meetings and that she's pregnant. Scott choked on his words upon hearing about the child. Confirming the accuracy of the information. You brought up divorce because you got Ashley pregnant, right? Probably, she threatened to ruin your life by spreading this to our friends. And even to me if you didn't divorce me. Ashley was Scott's first girlfriend. They broke up because of her cheating. However, she always held a special place for Scott. Though I was aware of this, I never thought they would get back together. So I felt secure. I never expected you to reconnect with her. But it must have been just right for you, huh? Since we didn't have children, and Ashley was your type of woman. That's why you decided to dump me and asked for a divorce. Having seen through everything, Scott was at a loss for words. Ashley had been bragging about their affair at her workplace. Gina, who had heard this, was convinced they were dating. When Gina tried to tell me about it, we reunited at the city court. She became my ally because she knew all the circumstances. So, you were going to demand compensation from me because I couldn't have children. But it turns out you're the one who will suffer. I'm fully prepared to fight you on this. But, it was actually your fault. Ashley and I could have a child. But no matter how much we tried, you and I couldn't. This proves I'm not the one to blame. Scott, clearly panicking, made statements that further proved his affair and that he had impregnated Ashley. Turning to Gina, I was grateful she had recorded everything, providing new evidence. The men around us also listened as witnesses. Trapping Scott in a situation he couldn't talk his way out of. Remember when we went for a fertility test together? Huh? I don't remember taking any. Oh. As I brought up the topic, Scott seemed to finally remember. He exclaimed as I was about to reveal surprising results. About the test results, it turns out I'm not the one with the issue. Huh? Confused, Scott made a puzzled sound over the phone. The test showed that the infertility issue is with you, Scott. You're the one without viable sperm. The fact that Scott was infertile left him speechless. While I could hear frantic noises on his end, I prepared to show him the evidence. If you don't believe it, I'll show you on a video call. Look at your phone screen. As I said this, I kept the call on speaker and turned on the camera. Scott's call also switched to video mode. And the moment I showed him the official results from the hospital, a high-pitched female voice came from his side. Wait. Scott, listen to me. Ashley was there next to him, trying to grab his phone. Ashley, what the hell is this? Explain. Scott, fuming with anger, glared at her as she frantically tried to deflect the blame onto me. It's not like that. This. Don't lie. There's no way Scott could be infertile. The unexpected situation was thrilling. Almost like something out of a daytime drama, and the men around us were intrigued. Amidst the chaos, Gina Manning suddenly appeared on the call screen. Oh, look, it's Ashley. What are you doing there? I thought you had a date with that handsome entrepreneur today. Gina. Both seemed surprised to see Gina on the screen, and their reactions were amusing. Gina continued with a smirk. You're always bragging about men at work. But I had no idea you were also messing with Scott. How many guys have you snagged this month? You love to brag about it at work, don't you? Stop it, Gina. Don't say such ridiculous things. Ashley turned pale at Gina's unexpected revelation. Hearing this, Scott trembled with anger and shouted. What's this all about, Ashley? Whose child is it? It's obviously yours, Scott. Gina is just spouting nonsense. Are you going to believe her over me? I'm getting such harsh treatment. Why would you think I'm lying? If you want to label me a liar, how will you explain away this recording? Care to enlighten me? Gina, finding amusement in the escalating conflict, began to play a damning audio recording. Ashley, what are you going to do about the baby? Isn't the businessman refusing to acknowledge it? The recording, made in the city court break room by Gina, captured a conversation between Ashley and several female colleagues. Yeah. But I really don't want to raise it alone. There's this guy who's totally into me right now, so I was thinking of pinning it on him. You're up to no good again. How are you planning to pin it on him? Ashley's shocking reply came without hesitation. I was planning to milk him as a sugar daddy. But turns out he's trying to divorce his wife. He's an ex from high school, Scott Hansen, and he seems likely to cave easily to pressure. So, I'm going to threaten him with the child to push the divorce through. Then have him remarry me and take care of the kid. Ashley's audacious strategy left her colleagues in disbelief. I don't actually like kids, nor do I want to raise them. But his mom has been nagging him about wanting to see a grandchild, and she's keen on helping out. So, why not leave the kid for my husband and his mom to look after while I enjoy myself outside? Everyone's happy, except his wife, of course. That's wicked. The guy who fell for such a wicked woman just ran out of luck, huh? Poor Scott. The female colleagues laughed, seemingly amused by the situation as outsiders. Scott, hearing this, was seething with rage, while I was aghast at the unfolding drama. It's not. I mean, don't give me excuses. With this evidence out, how do you plan to wriggle out of this, huh? Scott seemed ready to confront Ashley physically, which alarmed me enough to interrupt their heated argument and declare my stance to Scott. That's how it is. A lawyer will probably be visiting you soon. Let's discuss this through the lawyer from now on. Wait, Megan. Let's talk, just once. I was deceived by this woman too. I'm a victim here. Without her, we could have fixed things. Please, give me a chance to talk. Are you saying you'll dump me? Isn't that cruel? Didn't you say I was more important to you than she was? Caught in such an unbelievable real-life drama, I felt disgusted and tired of the mess. As if I'd give you that chance. You can handle the rest on your own. After all, I'm no longer your wife or anything to you. I couldn't help but sigh. What was it about this man that had once caught my eye? Now, I regretted not just the marriage but even dating him in the first place. His words no longer had any impact on my heart. Please, don't say that. Just give me one more chance. Let's start over. You said you were deceived, but that's my line. All this time you've mocked and belittled others. Do you have any idea how I felt staying by your side these past 5 years? That's. Struck where it hurt, Scott had no reply. Either you nor Ashley intend to forgive you. I'll socially and legally corner you and show you hell. Be prepared. With those words, I ended the call. Soon after, lawyers arrived, and without any physical altercation, they began discussing compensation. Thus, my conflict with Scott came to an end. Since then, I've demanded a significant amount in compensation from Scott and Ashley. Despite his declarations of hiring a lawyer, he had not managed to save a penny. He thought that by threatening me, I would weaken and agree to help him. He admitted as much in his testimony. As for the compensation, Scott, who earned a meager salary, quickly exhausted his savings and is now chased by monthly payments. Ashley also broke up and, having no money to maintain her home, had to return to her parents' house where she was met with outrage and not allowed inside. Thanks to this, Scott found work in a factory in the countryside and is diligently repaying his debt. Actually, the strong men that Gina brought with her were Scott's seniors from his hometown. And they have promised to manage his repayments to ensure he doesn't escape his debt. Thanks to this arrangement, his payments are proceeding without issue. Meanwhile, Ashley was fired from her government job due to her scandalous behavior, and is now repaying her debt to me by working in the nightlife industry and taking part-time jobs during the day. After being abandoned by Scott, she is walking a lonely path. Unsure she could raise a child on her own, she opted for a foster care system. In this way, I have managed to settle my long-standing grudges. Since then, Gina and I have become good friends and often go out together. I have a nice senior colleague. I think you'd get along with him, Megan. But I'm already at this age. Don't be silly. A woman should always be in love. Forget that trash and move forward. Despite being forcefully invited to drink, spending time with Gina makes every day enjoyable. She won't let me spend a single lonely moment and has included me in her circle. Thanks to her kind consideration and warmth, my emotional wounds are gradually healing. Now, I'm even dating a man she introduced to me. If you two ever have a child, let me hold it second.
Ah.
That's not fair. I'm the second. Huh? I've known her longer than you, so I should be first. No way. Absolutely not. Watching the friendly banter between these two, I vow to protect this happiness.